Other comments? We're taping and videotaping tonight's candidates debate, and it'll be broadcast on YouTube. And merci à Daniel Robichaud pour faire ça. So if anybody feels that they want to go back and review some of the comments as they've been stated, you'll be more than welcome to revisit that on YouTube. This session of the agenda of the forum, and don't forget, it was designed to try and let our candidates hear what's going on. We know there's a lot of questions out there that many of you have, and at some point we'll try to address the issues as best we know them. And sometimes it's tough taking everybody's questions. However, as part of what we agreed upon with the candidates is that we would ask the 5 questions, aller poser les 5 questions, and then we would solicit questions from either Facebook or through email and other telephone into the Atelier de Claire. And we received some responses, so we chose the questions that we thought are most appropriate given the nature of the topic tonight. So, avec ça, on a été choisir des questions, 3 questions que les 3 candidats allaient avoir 2 minutes chaque à répondre en termes des questions qu'on a reçues à travers le public en général. So, ceux qui avaient des chances à soumettre leurs questions, ils avaient des chances à l'avance. So, merci à vous qui avez répondu à ça. So, I'll get Trudy now to introduce a couple of the candidates.
Thanks, Terry. I would first like to invite Kathleen Jacques, the Executive Director of Maison Géron and Atelier de Claire, to speak on her issues, what she feels are the relevant issues with her line of work. Thank you, Kathleen.
Sorry, am I broadcast? You're live. Yes, you're live. Okay. Bonjour tout le monde, mon nom est Cathy Jacques, je suis directrice de l'Atelier de Claire Maison Géron, ici à Pointe-à-L'église. We have had the great pleasure and the privilege and the responsibility of caring for adults with intellectual disabilities and other disabilities in our community since 1978. It's not something new. This work happens in our community, and there are a number of advantages to that. I'd like to highlight 2. The first is that we keep our citizens here at home. That's the social advantage. Everyone can relate to that, I believe. The second advantage, which people may not be so aware of, is that we keep jobs and money here in our community, where they're needed desperately. We provide 15 well-paid jobs to a dedicated and excellent staff, and what I believe from what they tell me is enjoyable and rewarding work. This money, close to $1 million, most of which stays here in Clare, goes to support and enrich our community. There are huge advantages not to export our people out of this community. There are social and economic and cultural and linguistic benefits. We need to have the services here at home, not in an institution far removed from the community over there. I know that each of you candidates have touched on these issues of service at home, but I'd like to ask you personally, if you're elected and you are our MLA, within the next few weeks, you're going to have a responsibility to us, and I would like to know what you are going to do to ensure that the services, citizens, and culture of this community are not exported out of the Clare area. Thank you.
Merci, Kathy, and we'll start with, I've got it here, candidate number 3. Mr. Wilson, please.
Thank you. Yes, housing. I believe we touched on it. I'll elaborate on it a little bit more, and I can't agree with you anymore also. We see this in more than ever throughout a lot of different areas. Not just people with disabilities, but seniors, senior housing. It's difficult for anybody to think how somebody can go through not having their loved ones close to them. It even goes to the point where we're, you know, we lose people. My son last night called me from Vancouver. It's the first time I had a chance to talk to him since the rip was dropped, and probably one of the brightest points in my week. Well, I had a lot of bright points, but these things are dear to us. It makes our communities stronger. Especially, I have to say, when I come down into the Clare area, and the culture in the community here is one that is unique. It is extremely welcoming. It is extremely well-defined as family. And I would have to say throughout my travels to the province of Nova Scotia is one of the best examples of a community working together with people that look after each other that I've ever seen. So the impact of people with disabilities having to leave Clare to go and live somewhere else is certainly recognized by myself. The financial cost to not only the province, but to the individual is enormous. I mean, you have to send somebody on the road to go visit. You detach them from everybody else that's around them. It makes a lot of sense, again, to follow the roadmap. The roadmap clearly states that. And it states that people should be in a place they feel is home. And how can you feel in a place that is home if your family's not around you? So, yes, I would firmly fight for that myself, and think that that's a basic principle that we should have for people with disabilities. Thank you.
Merci, Gordon. Thank you very much. Next, I call upon Dean. Dean?
First, can I have the question clearly read back again, please?
Kathy?
I hope I can repeat it. Each of you has touched on the issues of keeping community services available and not bringing them out of the community. But I want to know, Dean, if you're elected and you serve us in the next few weeks, what are you personally going to do to stop the export of our citizens, our money, and our jobs out of Clare and into larger institutions outside our region?
I think you captured it.
Okay, thank you. That's a little clearer now. I was looking for an answer from my comrade over here, but I didn't hear a very clear answer. I look at it like the decisions and the services and the monitoring here need to be done within our community. And I look at the special needs and the organization that it takes here, and it's very similar to like our healthcare boards. We have very distinct communities here and very distinct needs and desires. And we need to manage these within our own community. Unlike the other two parties, which are going to create one super health board for all of Nova Scotia and rural Nova Scotia, they may do the same thing with community services and special needs. This will not happen with an NDP government that I'm involved with. We will work very closely with the communities and all the organizations to make sure that the services, the citizens, and the money will not go to large institutions, and we will manage our own decisions here locally. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dean. Merci. OK, maintenant, j'aimerais que Paul Émile réponde aux questions à Cathy Jacques. Merci.
Oui, il n'y a pas de doute que l'économie locale est très importante, et puis le fait qu'on peut garder nos résidents dans nos lieux et dans les lieux qui sont accoutumés de rester, c'est très important. So it's very important that we keep residents and our persons with disabilities in our local area. It's paramount, you know, for their development, but also for the development of the community, because we want an inclusive society where everybody is included, you know, and if we exclude members of our community by exporting them outside and not be with their families and with their friends, then we are doing a disservice not only to the individual that we're allowing to leave, but also a disservice to the people that you know, to the community and to their families. So definitely day one after elected, we have to start working on a plan to keep people into their local communities. It's paramount. I'll give you an example of something we should start working on right away. We do not have accessibility to housing in Digby County, for special needs. The apartments that were put in with the Housing Authority back a few years ago date back to the 1970s. They're not accessible to the new modern wheelchairs and everything. So if somebody had to leave their house right now and had to find housing in the Clare area, they could not find housing in some of the housing units we have, because the units are not accessible to the new standards where with the wider doors and larger facilities. So there's no doubt, as MLA, faut que tu commences dès la première journée à travailler pour assurer que les résidents restent dans leur communauté. So we need to start from day one to keep residents in their community.
Merci, Paul-Aimé. Ladies and gentlemen, merci beaucoup. I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge, I see in the audience tonight some other service providers. I see Andrea's here. Hi, Andrea. And Jill and Debbie, and maybe I'm missing some, but I acknowledge the fact that these ladies are providing great service to our community, and so the N Monette too up there with Claude. So thanks, ladies, for our community and demonstrating commitment to helping people with special needs and disabilities. So thank you very much. The next question is coming from Trudy's going to introduce.
Your microphone. Next question will be, and Cedric was kind enough to make a copy for each of the candidates. Next question will be on housing, and it will be presented by Cedric Robichaud.
My question is, wheelchair users living in Clare have no access to subsidized wheelchair housing. So some have to move and even come close to be homeless. Can you assure us that if you're elected, this will not happen again?
Thank you for that question. So the last sentence, can you assure us that if elected, this will not happen again? Well, similar to when I was canvassing, someone asked me, are you going to make me any promises? I said, yes. I'll make you one promise. If elected, I will work as hard as I possibly can for you and your causes. And that's exactly what I will do. This is a very, very important issue, and there is a lot of facilities that just don't meet the building code for wheelchair accessible. And I understand the situation. There was one home in particular here in Clare that I was at last week, and it was a husband and wife, and they have one child, and their main concern right now in life is getting a proper ramp outside of their house because they don't have access to get their child in and out of their house. And it became very apparent to me that when you're in these kind of situations, nothing else in the world matters to you except for taking care of the daily needs of your child. And it opened my eyes and made me realize how important these situations are. So I will promise you I will work as hard as I can to try and satisfy your needs and fix this problem. Yes, thank you.
Merci.
Oui, le même commitment, the same commitment from the, c'est important qu'on fait sûr que, puis c'est pas avec public housing, c'est private housing et tout. Faut travailler avec les contracteurs, faut travailler avec le monde qui bâtit, qui a les appartements, et puis faut faire sûr qu'il y a accessibilité dans tous les bâtisses. So we definitely need to work with all stakeholders that have apartment complexes in the Clare Digby area to ensure that there are units available, because it doesn't all have to be public housing, it can be private housing, so it's important. But I do pledge to work on behalf of myself and our party that we need to make sure that will it never happen? It's hard to tell, but the commitment is I will work to make sure that I do everything in my power to ensure that this does not happen again. Thank you.
Merci pour les mails. Gordon, s'il vous plaît.
Yes. There's several examples, I think, of situations in a lot of communities that accessibility, and even outside of subsidized housing. We touched on, I think, the same person that called all three of us regarding the wheelchair accessible ramp to get to their house. And just to give you a little background, the situation is this person didn't have the proper alignment in her yard to be able to have a wheelchair accessible ramp built. So it was a catch-22. The contractor wouldn't build it because it couldn't be built to code, and she needed it, but didn't have a place that it could actually fit. So I was fortunate enough to have access to a building inspector that gave me an innovative answer to that. It's not a wheelchair accessible, it's simply an accessible ramp for the home that can be built to a little different standard, still fits the mode, still fits the need, and allows that person to stay in their house and get a legible contractor to do the work. So you have to think outside the box on a lot of these things. Now, subsidized accessible housing in Clare, yes, I mean, we have 4 apartments now. Do you build something onto the end of those and expand them and make that alignment one that fits? Make that apartment unit there one that fits? Do you look at the needs of the whole community and build one new one that fits, that say has 15 units in it? Or do you add on 2 units to the existing? There's a lot of different ways that you can do this. But the importance is, and yes, and I mean, certainly, in today's world, everybody else has accessible, subsidized housing. Now, what they don't have it is accessible, subsidized housing for people with disabilities. There's been a lot of work done by our local MLA here to have wheelchairs, or I'm sorry, elevators installed in some of these. These are the things that continue to need to be developed and looked at, the different options. But certainly, yes, I would support that in a heartbeat.
Thank you, Gordon. Next, Trudy.
Monette Robichaud. Monette will address the proposed home for you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I'm actually not going to ask a question because the questions have been asked and you've answered a lot about the housing, and I commend you on your answers. And I just want to make this statement. It was at the end of 1993 that Clarendon Robichaud began his 20-year journey of advocacy for people with disabilities. He became the heart and soul of CORE, Clare organization representing persons with disabilities. Among his many achievements, we know that Le Transport de Clare is, for him, his board members, and our community, #1 on his list. 3 years ago, I received the privilege of replacing Clarendon as the president of the newly formed board, which became a separate entity from the Transport de Clare.
Thank you, Monette.
From Robichaud à U to Robichaud à U.
It runs in the family.
Yeah. Our core mission has become very clear to us. We wish to continue to represent and assist persons with disabilities in Clare by advocating for the creation of positive, independent lifestyle options that promote inclusion and growth. And with this in mind, we have successfully formed a steering committee of parents and committed members in the community, for which for the past just 1 year has worked together at preparing a feasibility study, a business plan, And this is for what we want, our first community home that will accommodate 4 young people with disabilities in our beautiful region of Clare. Once one of you has been elected to represent us in government, please remember the name Cord and look at my face. Because be assured that we will often be knocking at your door to ensure that Clare will have a community home for these 4 young adults where they will be able to live as independently as possible in their own community, close to their family, close to their friends, in a community that they know and can live in a house they will call home.
I know Mona didn't ask it in the form of a question, but I'll give each 2 minutes to respond if you'd like before we go into the closing remarks. Do you have anything to say, Pauline?
Oui, il n'y a pas de doute que Monette Robichaud m'a mis au courant de ce projet ici depuis le commencement. It's a very important project, and I have to reminisce back to when Clarendon had his dream of creating the Transport de Clare. This can be an innovative way of providing a new option housing for not just Clare, but for also Digby area and also the rest of the province. So it's very important that we, again, it's coming from the grassroots. It's very important that we work with innovative ideas like this in order to ensure that all options are looked at and that we, that we listen to, because in the end, everybody's a taxpayer. It's all, our money that we're using. So I think we need to use it properly and to use it where taxpayers feel it's best served. So il n'y a point de doute que c'est important qu'on garde ce projet et puis qu'on fait sûr que ça peut être un modèle pour le restant de la province et la province de Digby, et la municipalité de Digby aussi et la ville de Digby. So let's all work together to ensure that this project does get the attention it deserves. Thank you.
Thank you, Pauline. Essentially so many thanks for what you said earlier, so thank you. Gordon?
Thank you very much. I guess, none of us are going to say no. I mean, how could you say no? Like, that's, but I guess we need to, I guess the biggest thing is we have to say is, what's our plan? And that's why, again, the roadmap, our commitment as Liberals to follow the roadmap, to give people a choice of where they live is important. As I mentioned earlier, everybody has the right to go to bed in a place they feel is home. And it's, it's the same for seniors, it's the same for disabled seniors, and it's the same for senior use. So, putting a plan in place and following the roadmap for transformation of the Nova Scotia services to persons with disabilities, to me, is the commitment that you keep hearing from me, from the Liberals. I keep referring to this. And that, I think, is the assurance that you'll have, that I'll have something to go to bat with you, or for you, to make sure that that happens. Thank you.
Thanks, Gordon. Dean?
Thank you. Yes, the need for youth and housing is very important, and also other services. The NDP has just recently announced a new program, and it's a program specifically guided towards youth. It's a 3-year, $6 million, 5-step plan. Some of the highlights are to invest in early intervention programs, increase salaries for early intervention program staff, create a team of family navigators based out of the IWK Health Center, ensure a family-centered approach to serve families with more than one child with special needs. And this is something that hasn't been commented on or mentioned. There's a lot of situations like this where you think about a family with a special needs person, but there's families with more than one. And provide more flexibility for families who need respite care. So as far as the housing goes, it's very important to develop a plan so that we can have multiple people inside a house, maybe possibly one caregiver. This is very important to us as a government. We want these used in all cases to feel independent, needed, and respected. And majority of them can be very, very productive and employable in the resources and in the businesses. Similar to what we've done in the past, we look forward to employing more of these people in Clare-Digby region. Thank you very much.
Great, Dean. That's a good answer. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the formal question and answer session. And I wanted to respect the fact that when I'd ask the candidates, or when we asked the candidates to take on this forum tonight, that the forum was more designed as an exchange of information, questions on persons with disabilities and special needs, and hear what the candidates and the parties have to say about that. I want to just open it to the floor, not ask questions, but I want to hear if anybody has anecdotal evidence or observations that they would like to make, just to pass on to the candidates. I'm not asking you to respond. We're going to take maybe 5 minutes if somebody just wants to make a comment regarding that, and then we're going to close it up because I've got a little bit of time. It's not asking the candidates the questions, but if you have something you want to say, I'm going to give you their chance right now.
One gentleman over here asked, and I'm going to give him the mic first.
Not in a question format, but just a...
Not a question, but a comment or a statement.
It was a question, mostly.
Can you put it in the form of a statement?
You said you have 21% of the people was disabled in this area. My question was, how did you figure that number?
It's not them that figured it out. It's
I know.
statistics.
That's what I wanted to ask.
Basic statistics that are dictating that.
It's based on statistics and data.
Yeah, but it's what
I
I
can get your
asked.
name.
How did you figure that? Because I do know statistics.
If I can get your name, I can get back to you with where that.
Yeah, but
Statistics Canada, Terry.
Statistics Canada?
Yeah.
Candidates.
Do you want to take this gentleman's name?
Yeah, we'll
here?
get it. We'll read it right after. We'll pass it on to the candidates and
Yes.
Anybody else have Elaine in the back here, Trudy has a comment to make?
Oh.
Yes, I've been hearing that it's good to be able to go to bed at night in a place where you feel at home. I just want to mention that my mom is 100 years old, and she's been 8 weeks now in the Digby Hospital. And she was bilingual, but at this point she hardly understands the nurses. So in the meantime, there's 2 residents, English speaking, from Shelburne that have been placed in Villa Acadienne. Mom is with 3 other French ladies in Digby that need to come to the villa. And she may be placed in Annapolis, for all we know. So I would like you to look at this regulation of the 100-mile limit around the place where you go when you want to go into your senior citizen home. I think right now my mom has a very special need that is not being met. And I would like the Kenville office who do the placement to be able to have the regulations changed so that language and culture are as important as the 100-mile radius. So I would ask whoever gets appointed that they place some importance on that. And having said that, we wouldn't mind if these were English-speaking people from the community of Clare. But when they come from the other areas, we feel that they're taking our own places.
Thanks. Thank you, Elaine. Do you have any other observations or comments that somebody would like to make to the candidates before they leave
Charlotte,
tonight?
I won't.
We got one
Oh,
in
yeah.
a minute, Bobby. We got you.
Yeah, we'll get you next.
Okay.
Okay, I just wanted to make a comment. We've focused a lot, I think a lot on the physical disabilities, we didn't talk about the intellectual. But just to highlight and just to keep in the back of your mind as well, whoever does become MLA, we see a lot of people that work very hard and do quite well. and then something happens. So even though if you look at statistics, cancer is the leading cause of death and illness, but actually it's cardiovascular. They just separate the heart and the stroke. So there's about 500 people that die of cardiovascular illness, and then cancer on top of that. But it's the ones that survive that's even, sometimes, you know, you have to balance that out. Is it worth living? Because of what the repercussions are of surviving such a tragedy. So when you think about disability, you have lots of people that are going through cancer treatments who have just survived a stroke and now can no longer work. And now the dual income goes to one. And there's no support for that because of where their income is. Because to get support, it's a very low number, and it's actually really staggering and upsetting that people that work really hard then go to an income that is intolerable for anybody to live at that level. So I just wanted to make a comment to think about those type of people as well. And we have a lot of people in our community as well as traveling to appointments, the dialysis, the cancer treatments. We're all traveling, whether from Digby or Clare, the islands, to get that treatment. And people are choosing to literally provide a quality of life or actually choose to die and go to dialysis in Yarmouth. So I just wanted to keep that in mind.
Thank you. That's very touching. Appreciate it. We've got a special guy who's going to ask a big question right now. Bobby Camo. By the way, he's a big Montreal Canadian fan, but we're not going to put that against him. Right? Yeah, that's right. So anyway, what do you got to say, Bob?
Okay, I'm Bobby Camo, and I live in Weymouth Mills. And I am on a fixed income disability pension. And what State give me is good. I'm proud of that. But there's one thing I want to know. I read the Chronicle Herald every day from my friend of the workshop. I get informed from that. But one thing I want to know, what the paper says about the GST. I do get it, but they said, I don't know it's true or not, but they want to freeze it or lower it down from some percent, I don't know. Is it true about the GST? Freeze it or lower it down?
I think what we'll do, Bobby, is I'm not sure if the candidates can respond to that, but it's something that they can go ahead.
I'm quite concerned. Yeah.
Okay. Would you like to each take a crack at it? Polymère, are you okay? I'll start with you.
Thank you. The NDP stance is we've made some hard fiscal decisions in the past 4 years, and we've come a long ways, and we've done a great job to balance the books and get back on track. Having said that and having done that, we've made a firm commitment. January 1st, 2014, we will drop the HST by 1% down to 14. January 1st, 2015, we will drop it another percent down to 13%. That is the NDP commitment. Thank you.
Our commitment is to drop it to 13% from 15%. So that is in our platform. That would be done as soon as we're elected. Thank you.
I'd like to say that the one biggest thing people have problems with politicians is them saying they're going to do something and then not. They're getting really tired of that. We've seen $1.2 billion added to our debt here in the last 4 years. And I'm very proud that our leader has stood up and said, no, we cannot afford right now to reduce our taxes. But we did say that if we can get our debt in hand, and if we can get our budget in hand, which I don't think we have, then we will drop it, yes. But not until then.
Thank you. Thank you, candidates, for that. I know it's impromptu.
One more comment from Claire.
Okay, we got a comment in the form of a comment and observation because we're going to get on to closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Manette, for replacing me. So, it's on the issue of poverty, and I want you guys to keep that in mind. Transport of Clare donates about $16,000 a year to subsidized trips, and also wearing my Lions Club hat. It's very important. So a lot of people out there with electricity, we're not going to talk about no Nova Scotia Power, but electricity, everything out there, and those Digby County's population at almost 30% seniors over 65, that's a lot of fixed income. And these are former people in Digby County that worked in fish plants and didn't retire with a big fat pension. So keep poverty in mind. I know it's not a, gee, let's get elected on the policy of poverty, but we see it every day, and I want you guys to just remember those faces of people living in poverty. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Thank you for your observations and comments. Merci pour les commentaires. Right now, we're going to go into the closing remarks. Each candidate will be given 4 minutes to follow, to finish with your closing remarks, and then we'll wrap it up from there. And we'll start off with candidate number 3, Gordon Wilson.
Thank you very much. I guess I started off maybe reflecting on who I was and what I felt was my qualifications to be an MLA and hopefully be a good MLA. And I think to end, I'd like to touch on what we're about in our campaign, what we're about as our team, and what we're about for communities, and what we're about for moving forward. I'd like to just start by saying how proud I am of what we've done. And to give you a little background, our campaign immediately recognized one thing, is with 10,000 homes, 80 communities, 4 villages, 1 town, and 1 First Nations, there's no way that we were going to be able to get out, as you've seen in elections in previous years. This just wasn't going to happen. We developed a plan, we've stuck with the plan, and I'm very proud of it. Our plan focused around communities and around people. It focused around ensuring that you and I had the opportunity to meet, the opportunity to learn what we're all about, to see what makes you tick, and find out, moving forward, what some of the things that we can do to help. So, we've tracked all 80 communities. We listed them, and we've made notes of when we're in them. And I'm very proud to say that by the end of this campaign, we will have been into every one of those 80 communities, 4 villages, town, and First Nations. On top of that, I'm also extremely pleased to say that we added on 13 community meetings. These community meetings happened mainly 7 o'clock at night they'd start. They were anywhere from Westport to Digby to Weymouth to Bear River to Salmon River to Concession. I've been everywhere, man, we can say that. But they were excellent, excellent forums. They really were. They provided a different dialogue than you get going door to door. I would 15, 20 minutes stand up, give a little spiel on what it was, and then I would stand there and I would be grilled on things from aquaculture to the mink industry, Little Lake Dowsett, to where's your constituency office going to be? Poverty was a big one. We talked about 3 out of every 10 people in this province are living, and they're living at a low rate of income. They have to make decisions every day whether they buy milk or pop. They have to make decisions every day or whether they pay the power bill or whether they buy their medication. So I have to just touch on that was an extremely important part. I thought I had 4 minutes. Okay.
Give me the 1 minute.
Yeah. I want to also say that I'm a team player and I want to reach out to everybody in the community. All the leaders, I want to reach out to all the parents, the caregivers, and the volunteers. Anybody, because I want to work side by side with everybody in these communities. I'm very proud, and I want to take this opportunity to thank you. I want to take this opportunity to actually ask you humbly also if you would support me on October the 8th, and I will guarantee you that I will serve you to my utmost. Thank you very much.
Dean? Thank you. What I talked about earlier, when I decided to get into this, and the rib was dropped, and then we started canvassing, I thought, okay, this is my plan. I'm gonna go to the doors, knock on the door, and when the people answer, we're gonna talk about economy, we're gonna talk about jobs, we're gonna talk about seniors issues, and maybe some basic health care. Was I in for a rude awakening? Not very many houses want to talk about some of those things. When I knocked on some doors and saw some of the situations that people live in, some people have not the slightest, their lives are totally different than what I would expect. And behind some doors, like I say, the simplest things in a daily routine is the hardest things for them to do. And that's why it's so important for us to make sure that we have all the resources and the staff and the will and the drive to make sure that all these things are addressed. But we have to think at the bigger picture. For every one of these situations that we're talking about, there's a cost. There's a large cost here. And it falls on us as taxpayers, us as workers, us as business people, and us as a government. We have to manage this money. We have to create the revenues first. Let's talk about, I've been criticized here at the table for fiscal management. So let's look at some fiscal numbers and some information here. The Nova Scotia government, the province of Nova Scotia has been granted the highest credit rating in its history. And we don't get an applause for that. Under the Nova Scotia rule, or under the NDP rule here, we have been granted the highest rating ever. And like it was mentioned before, the interest rate on our debt has been dropped, which is saving tens of millions of dollars. The provincial debt right now stands at $14 billion. And when I say that, it almost like it knocks the wind out of me. Because there's over $900 million in interest that has to be paid on that debt. And my other two colleagues here and parties are the ones that built up the majority of that debt. We have to address this debt. And that's exactly what the NDP government is doing. Through proper and sound fiscal management, we are being able to address more and more of these social issues now than ever before. And it is the NDP government's plan to continue moving forward, like initiatives like ending March Madness. In the past 3 years, we have saved over $500 million. And we will continue to fiscally manage our money and be able to offer the services that we need here today. Thank you, Dee.
Okay. Ce soir, le gros sujet a été l'importance d'avoir une société qui inclut tout le monde. Puis c'est très important qu'on tienne ça en vue quand on regarde à tous les politiques qu'on décide de maintenant en mouvant de l'avant. It's very important that we look at how inclusive our society is and how are we in the future going to keep it being inclusive and actually expand on it. There's no doubt that you have to have social and fiscal responsibility. Where I work, I've worked for the last 20 years at the credit union system, and where our leader, Jamie Bailey, has worked at Credit Union Atlantic, we have to balance both social and fiscal responsibility. You know, a credit union is owned by its members. It has to turn a profit in order to stay in business, but it also has to have social values and work within the community to ensure that those causes are advanced. And in my line of work, that's where I have demonstrated the ability to have both the items of social responsibility and fiscal responsibility. But we have to bring that forward to our province. Notre province a besoin d'avoir la responsabilité sociale et puis la responsabilité fiscale aussi. So c'est très important qu'on travaille pour faire sûr qu'on a les deux. So in order to have boat, then that's when we'll truly start working at having everybody included for the ride when you have new policies being implemented. So it's my commitment to you that will be followed. The roadmap that's been referred to is owned by the people that wrote the document. It's not owned by any government or any party. We have to make sure that we, listen to the stakeholders and make sure that we follow the roadmap, so that we have the right tools in place in order to make sure that our society is inclusive. So, and that's what I pledge to do. I've lived my life, throughout the years of making sure that everyone is along for the ride, and that's what I pledge as an MLA. So on October 8th, I do urge that you do consider my candidacy, and I urge you to vote, because voting is also important. So on October 8th, on Octobre 8, je demande pour votre support. Merci.
Merci, Paolo. Okay, as we're right on time, 8:28. Trudy, would you like to make a few closing comments, and then we'll wrap it up?
I'm just going to say thanks for giving. Okay. Yes, I basically want to say thank you to all of you. This has just been such a phenomenal exercise, and I've learned over the last 2 or 3 weeks. I've learned an incredible amount. I really have to commend the candidates for running with this, because the material I presented them was not familiar to them at the depth that I now have the knowledge. I spent 3 days online researching, and I feel like my life is better by having this knowledge. And I really appreciate that these 3 men, as busy as they were with very little notice, actually came through superbly.
Here, here.
So I also wish to thank the Nova Scotia Association for Community Living. The Halifax group sent out incredibly good information, and in fact, some of the questions were formulated from their own process in Halifax. But this is a nationwide movement. It's not just here in Nova Scotia. It's not just here in Clare. But to see all these familiar faces here and know that we're now part of a national movement that's not going to stop. It's just going to keep going, and it's for all the right reasons. And I want to say a special thank you to all the clients and my friends. I don't want to refer to them as clients, but they are clients of our services in this community for people with disabilities. And when I saw all of them come in, several of them have left now, but it gave me such a feeling of joy. And also the service providers who attended as well. You and the clients add a dimension of life to this community, which is so special and unique. And I really hope that one day soon it will be visible to the entire community as much as it is to all of us here. You have my heart.
J'aimerais prendre cette occasion maintenant pour remercier les 3 candidats. Ça démontre un extraordinaire caractère pour être capable de prendre cette responsabilité pour se représenter nos communautés. I think it's an awful challenge for people to take on that opportunity or that job of trying to represent a community with such a diversified clientele. And I think everybody here in the audience tonight would like to thank each one of you for your effort and putting your names forward. It takes an awful effort to do that, and we appreciate it very much. So on behalf of that, I'd like to thank you. Just as a closing note here, I'd like Chloe to come down here for a second. We've got a little gift for each of the candidates tonight.
Montreal.
Dean Kenley, tu peux donner ça à Dean. Very good. Thank you. Maybe you should take your hat off, Jody, because that, you know, put on the Toronto hat there, Jody. So, the artwork is produced, one by Jody, I believe, and the other two, I'm not sure. Oh, by Jody and, who's the other one? All one. Yeah, so, all one. So, anyway, at this moment, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight. And remember, get out and vote. Tell your friends you got to get out and vote. It's important. If you want your democratic right to be heard, allez voter. So, merci beaucoup. Thanks everybody for coming out tonight. Thank you.